Unit 5, Lesson 5.4, Inverse SOH CAH TOA, Solving for Angles. Don't forget the date, time, location, as well as a parent or guardian sign-off. Your right triangle toolbox. So far, you have 4 tools under your belt. Tool number 1 is solving for Pythagorean theorem using simplified radicals. Tool number 2, the 45, 45, 90 table. Tool number 3, 30, 60, 90 table. And tool number 4, SOH CAH TOA. Solve these 4 problems on your own. Restart the video with a red pen in hand. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. So this first one, you should have had 9 squared plus unknown squared equals 12 squared. It's minus 81. At 63, we square root both sides. X equals 3 root 7 here. 3 root 7. 45, 45, 90, leg, leg, leg root 2. So there's one leg. Your other leg is 9 root 2 over 2. You take that and you times by another root 2. So we have 9 root 2 over 2 times root 2. Root 2 times root 2 is going to be 2. 2 over 2 is 1, which means all of that, you should have just ended up with 9. 30, 60, 90. Short leg root 3, short leg times 2. So this correct answer, that would be 9. And this would be 6 root 3. Here we have the opposite. We need the hypo. So it is sine of theta for 1 equals opposite over hypo. The sine of 53 degrees over 1 equals opposite, which is 15, over hypo, which is going to be x. To solve for x, it's going to be 15 divided by the sine of 53. You should have gotten around 18.78. X equals approximately 18.78. Mark this right or wrong in a red pen. If you got it wrong, I'd like you to make note as to why. So far, we have 4 right triangle tools, 4 of them. Pythagorean theorem, 45, 45, 90, 30, 60, 90, and then SOH CAH TOA we use for finding side lengths. But the question is, what if you have the sides and you want to find angle measures? In other words, instead of finding side lengths, you're trying to find angle measures. And in that case, we're going to use something called inverse SOH CAH TOA. Inverse SOH CAH TOA, which looks like this: inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent. In some terminologies, it's also used arc. Arc sine, arc cosine, and arc tangent. I will use the term inverse. East Coast, they use the term arc. This is super easy to use. Step 1, you still identify your opposite, adjacent, and hypo depending on what angle you're working with. You identify the opposite side and the adjacent side to whatever angle you're working with. The hypo is always across from the right angle. Once you identify those sides, you determine the have, the need, and you're going to be using one of these three proportions called inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent to find the angle. Make note, these equations are slightly different from the one using sides. Looking for sides. Inverse sine, opposite over hypo, equals the angle. Inverse cosine, adjacent over hypo, equals the angle. Inverse tangent, opposite over adjacent, equals the angle. This is very easy to do. So these are your three equations, arc sine, arc cosine, and arc tangent, and we use these for finding angles. So make note on the right side of your chart there. Really important to note, at least for this unit, the only time you're going to hit that shift sign, also known as second function, in this unit is when you're looking for the angle. Do not hit that shift sign if you're looking for a side. You only touch that shift sign when you're looking for an angle. Now, I'm going to show you how to find angles using inverse SOH CAH TOA. We start with the same process of have, need, do. So in this case, we're going to find the missing angle, and when we do angles, I will allow you to round to the nearest whole degree. So from this angle, we have, if that's my angle, that means the 22 is opposite. The 33 is the adjacent. We want the angle theta. So notice I'm going to use the symbol theta for angle. I do not use the letter A for angle because I do not want to confuse angle with adjacent. So I'm going to use, if I'm looking for the angle, I'm going to use the symbol theta, which is the common symbol for referring to unknown angles. So notice what I have here is I have an OA combo. So I come over here and I find where my OA combo is, and it is inverse tangent. Always write your original equation exactly as you see it. That's inverse tan, parentheses, opposite over adjacent, equals the angle theta. So let's write out our information. Inverse tangent, parentheses. There's no equal sign. It's inverse tan of this ratio. In other words, you're taking the ratio and working backwards. Opposite, in this case, the opposite was 22. Over the adjacent, which is 34, gives us your angle theta. Now I'll show you how to do this on your calculators. Once you have your plugins, which is this step right here, then you may go to your calculator. Let me bring that one down one step so it's easy to see here. That's Inverse tangent, opposite, which is 22 over adjacent, which is 34, gives us our angle theta. How do you do this on your calculator? Two ways. If you have the TI 30 calculator, you are going to first push, simply do 22 divided by 34, okay? And then you hit the equal sign after that. Then you hit second function, tan, and the equal sign a second time. So you have to hit the equal sign between this. I'll show you what you should get when you do this. Okay, so the calculator on the left, you're going to follow me on the screen. Calculator's on the right, give me just a second. You do 22 divided by 34, hit the equal sign. Then you do second function. On mine, it's going to be inverse, but second function and tangent. And you're going to round to the nearest whole degree. So I have 32.9. We're going to call this at approximately 33 degrees. Now, on the TI 84s, or anything in which you can actually see the words, you start with second function, tan, and you're going to see something that registers like this. Then you do 22 divided by 34, so 22 divided by 34, and then you hit the enter button. And again, you should get approximately 33 degrees. If you're using the TI-84s, make sure you're also in degree mode. Remember that from the last time? You must be in degree mode. Do this several times with your calculator until you're able to get 33 degrees. Pause the video if you need to, but make sure you're getting 33 degrees. Let's try a few more examples here. It says, find all the angles in the triangle. Round your angle measures to the nearest whole degree. So let's see here. I want to get this angle first. And let's label our opposite, adjacent, and hypo. 42 is going to be our opposite. 40 is our adjacent. And 58 is our hypo. Now our have, need, do, we got a problem here. Or not a problem, just something you haven't seen before. We have all three sides, the opposite, the adjacent, and the hypo. We want the angle theta. So what on earth do we do when we have all three? Well, wonders of wonders. When you have all three, you get to choose. I'd like you to write out all three versions of the equation, and then you may work on your calculator only one of them. It'd be nice if you did all three. I'd like you to see that they all three work. But let's at least write all three down. The sine version of this would be inverse sine. I'd like you to write this down. And then we have inverse cosine and inverse tangent. The inverse sine here would be opposite over hypotenuse. Inverse sine, excuse me. Inverse cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse. And the inverse tangent would be opposite over adjacent. Now, right underneath, let's put our numbers there. Inverse sine. Our opposite is 42 over our hypo, which is 58. Our inverse cosine. Our adjacent is 40 over 58. Give us our angle theta. and inverse tangent, opposite 42 over hypo 58. Now you may do any one of these three. I'm going to show you that all three get the exact same thing. Let's do it 3 times. When you have a choice, you only have to do one, but for now, I want you to have all 3 written down the first time you've seen this, because you need to know that all 3 variations work. Okay, so first I'm going to do the inverse cosine. So watch what I do over here. Okay, I'm going to go 42 divided by 58 equal sign. Inverse, notice the -1 there, sine is approximately, I'm rounding to the nearest whole degree, approximately 46 degrees. Let's show inverse cosine. Inverse cosine, I'm going to go 40 divided by 58, hit my equal sign. Inverse cosine, notice the cosine -1. Lo and behold, whoa, it's the exact same thing, 46 degrees. Inverse tangent, 42 divided by 58 equal sign. Inverse, notice that's inverse tangent, inverse -1. Wait a minute, excuse me, I plugged my numbers in wrong. Hang on just a second. That's opposite over, got to keep my colors straight, adjacent. Kudos to those of you who were scratching your head, wondering what I was doing here. The adjacent here is 40. Guess what, folks? Miss Way did not circle, plug, chug, and that's how easy it is to make mistakes when you don't physically circle your numbers. I like to claim I did that on purpose just to prove my point. So we're going to go 42 divided by 40 and inverse tangent, once again, 46 degrees. Those of you using the large screen calculators, you know that you're hitting the second function, then sine, cosine, or tangent, then your division numbers. Make sure you're getting 46 degrees here, however version you're using. Now, what most people do is they stop right there, 46 degrees, but notice it said all the angles. So if this is 90, to get this angle over here, we're simply going to do 90 minus 46. And we get 44 degrees. Why go to the trouble of doing inverse SOH CAH TOA if you can simply subtract from 180? This page, I'd like you to do on your own, round to the nearest whole degree, and make sure you actually find all the angles, not just the one with the question mark. Pause the video, do this page on your own, and then restart. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. In this, we have our adjacent and our hypo. So I'm using inverse cosine. Adjacent over hypo is going to give us our angle theta right there. So inverse cosine, adjacent, which is 20, over our hypo, which is 48. It's going to give us that unknown angle. 20 divided by 48, inverse cosine, 65 degrees. Which would make this 25 degrees over here. This one, again, you have all three. We have the opposite and the adjacent and the hypo. I tend to use sine when I'm given a choice. You can use whatever you want. Sine -1, opposite over hypo will give us our angle theta. Inverse sine, opposite is 30 over our hypotenuse, which is 50. So 30 divided by 50, of course that's 0.6. Inverse sine, I'm going to round to the nearest whole degree, so that's approximately 37 degrees. To get this angle, I'm simply going to go 90 minus 37. I get 53 degrees. Please correct this with the red pen. I need to see at least your setup. You cannot do everything on a calculator, although some of you have figured out the shortcuts to how to do that. So the highlight portions, your setups, I must see minimally this. Do not just give me the answers. I need to see how you got your answers each and every time.